Welcome to the ultimate video Game Boy experience now.
Sick video game intro. I don't know, man. We rank things. We have shit opinions, probably, maybe.
Do we? Do we have good opinions? Maybe we have bad opinions. Who knows? First of all, I suppose our quick opinions on Live Life. It's really fucking good.
Yeah.
You should play it.
Extremely good. Me, as having played
wonderful.
both normal and new, both really good. I do.
This is the resident expert. This is the authority on Live Life. No one can compete with him.
Exactly. Shit translation and prehistory. D rank. No.
Yeah, I was actually gonna start with prehistory. Obviously, there's rankings here. None of these are bad. They're all good. It's a good game. You can just enjoy every story. All of them. They're great. Fantastic. You should buy the game. You should play it. But which story is the best?
That is a good question.
Now mark us some opinions.
Do I?
Do I
why
have
are you leading into me as if I have an opinion? I don't. Come on.
I probably have very similar opinions, but who knows? We might differ on occasion.
We might disagree.
Prehistory. Let's start early.
Let's start early and go from there. So let me just put them in order. Let me just because that's my little tick. I guess put the westerns after.
That's fair. That's fair.
I mean, technically this is before, but because of where it happens,
that's fair.
Put it there. Yeah, prehistory. Funny.
I love it. It's good.
Yeah, I think it's really good. I think it's like a great little it's a really fun, just like basic RPG thing.
But there's a bit of grinding at the start, where you just have to get the meat. And you have to get the meat often. It's a bit of a grind in a surprisingly 2 to 3 hour thing. The fact that you even have to grind is kind of surprising to me.
There is a bit of a back and forth there. You don't.
Yes.
I'm gonna say though, with the amount that I saw you going back and forth, I don't think you had to grind that much for the meat as much as you did.
You did not. I had too many items.
Yeah. Fair.
Overall, I thought it was a good experience. A very cartoony in nature as well. I am amazed that they basically got the whole story through with just grunts.
It is quite amazing, except for at the end where he says a word finally, even though again, as much of a joke as it was, the translation of the new game is a little bit faulty in the fact that they just have him scream where he's quite clearly saying the word love, but that's whatever. It's such a minor thing.
It's fine. He fucks. That's what he does.
He fucks, and then he gets a baby. Eventually. So that's pretty amazing.
And the monkey does horrible fart attacks.
That is true.
Is that a pro? Is that a con? Tell me.
I want to say that's a pro. I want to say that's a pro because it's pretty funny. And I mean the whole prehistory thing. It definitely made this like a more humoristic one. So. The funnier, the better. You might say shit humor is bad humor, but I completely disagree. If you don't think farts are funny, you can leave.
There's a time and a place for a fart.
That's true. And the time and place was definitely not there when I was watching him play this game.
You think it'd be in the game, but you got the 4D experience.
I got the 4D experience. That is very, very true. The 4D experience lasted... well past prehistory time, so I'm gonna be honest.
I was anyway, not the 4D experience, but the prehistory.
I would say it's like right around the middle, probably.
I was gonna say A or B. B is fair. B is fair.
I think it's good. It's not like exceptional. It's not amazing, but it's fun. It's nice. It's a nice little 2-3 hour thing.
It is.
Alright, so we go to China next.
How do we feel about China? And not the country.
Well, depending on what topic we take here, there's very, very differing opinions.
I shouldn't say that, because if the algorithm sees that, I'm gonna get fucking doxed.
That's fine, because we're past the first 15 seconds.
Nice. We're safe.
We're safe.
Now, opposed to the other one, I thought China was great in this case.
I think so too. Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah. No, I definitely, I really like China. I really like the whole theme that it had, where, you know, you pass on your experiences and your talents onto the next generation.
I also thought there was some, even though it wasn't very long, I did feel some emotional connection to the characters. I do have to say though, the things that happen also have pretty severe consequences, and it also allows you to really replay the chapter if you wanted to go a certain other way. The biggest downside with it is that it is very monotonous in the way you play it, because it's training. It's like start with introductory, then it's just training, and then it's the boss rush at the end. That's a bit weird.
It is a bit
weird. Gameplay-wise, story, it's one of the best. Gameplay-wise, it's a bit weird. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So we both, you get to choose one of 3 disciples. We both chose the same one, I think.
Yeah, we both chose the woman.
The best,
I will say though,
the best one.
We didn't pick the little boy. Little boy does, however, get an insane skill at like level 16. So that's like, there's good reasons to pick every single character, to pick either of them, except the haha funny I'm fat guy.
There's a very good reason.
Is there a good reason?
That is the only one where if you pick him, you get to see the dad. The running gag of the dad dying.
You know, you're right. You're right. The running gag. That's true. I guess that is a reason to pick him. But outside of that, you know, jokes aside, gameplay-wise, he's probably the worst choice.
He is.
Yeah. Also, story-wise, I don't know. I like the other 2 characters. He's a bit too much of a one-note, just haha funny, he's fat. He eats a lot kind of character.
And even though, you know, characters mean what they mean. I'd like that the lady has to learn to be more forgiving, more warm, and also is the only way you'd ever get a female playable character in your team. Eventually, that's a big plus for, you know, that good old gender equality that we love so much. I mean, I usually don't really care about that, but in this case, it's like, wow, that is really the only female character you can play as in this game, right? That's a bit. That isn't like a side party member, and like, I think it was like the prehistoric mode. That's it.
Yeah, just the prehistoric mode. Just this character. Just.
And I like that one too, but you know, this was like the only one. Like, I was like, yeah, it's a badass. I want to play as her.
Yeah, she's a
having
good
said
character.
that, I think it's a way better story than the previous story, but
the gameplay
I think the gameplay is slightly worse.
Yeah.
So I put it about the same.
Yeah,
for me.
I was gonna say the same. I'd probably also put it on B. Story I'd put on A, but because of the gameplay, I just put it on B.
That's fair. So next we have Odio Japan.
Definitely one of the best ones. Yes.
I love this one. It's Metal Gear in RPG form.
It is Metal Gear, or it's SMT.
I was gonna say Sekiro.
I mean, Sekiro could also work, yeah. But if you try to kill everybody, there is a fair bit of challenge. I imagine you didn't do the super bosses that were in this chapter. Speaking of, by the way, prehistory super boss, fucked up, very difficult. Shouldn't really bother with it. Doesn't really give them that amazing rewards. Odio Japan has like 2 super bosses.
I did not find them. I did a complete no kill run.
That's true. You wouldn't have found them if you weren't, you know, actively looking for people to kill. I was somebody who did do the kill everybody run, which was very interesting. It also definitely made it a bit like even longer than it already is, which isn't a bad thing because even then it's not insanely long. The super bosses are like this giant koi fish.
I saw that one.
That one's like
looks cool.
He's very cool. He's also very tough.
I believe it. Here's the thing that I'm actually very curious about when it comes to playing this, because we played it in completely different ways. I didn't really have much in the realm of bosses. I think there was one dude who kind of like controlled a bunch of robots behind the trapdoor. That was about it until like the final boss. I feel like if you go for the complete kill route, you get a completely different game.
Oh yeah, no, it's very different. I think in total there's like maybe 6 bosses or so.
I didn't miss a lot of those then.
I mean, granted, obviously, 2 of those are super bosses, but they're still they're more manageable than the prehistory one. I'll say that. But they are still fairly difficult. One of which had me just running around the room constantly and just throwing shit at him.
There was one interesting one that like you get a really cool sword for doing a 0 kill run, which is I think as strong as the sword you can get in the the final act.
Yeah.
For the shinobi, and I thought that was a really cool reward to give you a reason to play it in a different way. And it just the cherry on top for me is also this game got a demo, right, with a save that you can transfer.
Yes.
This was one of the acts you could play, which is like you could potentially get so much game time out of this chapter alone. So I think also the music was good. The surroundings were beautiful, HD. Although the other surroundings were pretty, this one was like, God, this chef's kiss.
Yeah, anytime that like our team, the developer, gets to do anything like night, it looks great. Like whenever they do anything that's like night or like it's dark, it's like that always looks great.
Were there any the only negative I could think of was that doing a 0 kill run was a bit trial and error. Are there any negatives that you had going into the all kill run?
I suppose really the only negative that I have with it, with saying what you are saying, is that you do kind of need a bit of a guide next to you if you want it. But to be fair, you could just do a run where you just kill a couple dudes. Like you're not locked to kill nobody or kill everybody.
That's what I heard. Afterwards I looked at the forums and people suggested just do that as your first one, just whatever. Yeah,
just play and just kill whoever, just fight whatever.
It's just I was stubborn. I wanted to kill no one.
That's fair. That's fair. So I guess never mind. I guess the negative is kind of a moot point since you can just play however you want, which is a big plus. The fact that you can there's like 3 ways to play through this chapter. Yeah. I'm feeling S as well. I was gonna say A, but like a very high A, like a very high A.
We may as well put it in an S.
Low S, yeah, we may as well put it as an S because there's not many other that I would put up there or even think about putting up there.
So then is the chapter with the best one-liner out of any of them.
It's an absolute amazing one.
And it's just when they go for like the awards of like best dialogue spoken in a video game and get to the Wild West one, it's just like, damn.
There it is. There's that line.
It is.
There's the best line in video game history.
What's the line? We're not gonna tell you. You play the game.
Exactly. Just make sure to talk about mothers. That's all.
Was that Mother 3? I don't know. Maybe it's
Who knows? Maybe. Topical. Ooh. Dating the review, Jim. How could you?
Dating the review. Only if it releases. If it doesn't release, this is a timeless piece of dialogue that I'm speaking right now.
A timeless piece.
Timeless. That was the successor to the Switch. So, I like the story. I like the very old Western setting and appeal. The gameplay was interesting.
I love the music.
The music's great.
The music is really good. The running gag in this one also a good one.
Well, the one at the end.
Very much on the nose.
Yes.
Not the dad running gag, where you just that one's like the least hidden. That one's just like, yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, I remember.
But the gameplay is very interesting. Yeah, the fact that they kind of just have you.
It's a Pikmin day.
Yeah, it's pretty much a Pikmin day. Pretty much. Not the same amount of time, because instead of 13 minutes, you have 8. But you could technically speed that up to 11, so it's almost a Pikmin day.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that they have you just running around, exploring, finding different kind of treasures that you can then give to specific different characters in the saloon, to then have them lay traps for enemies so that you have to fight less enemies in the end. It's very interesting, which also again brings you to another way where you can kind of replay it, because sometimes you might want to try it out with a couple enemies there. Sometimes you might want to try the final boss with everybody there, which it is possible to beat, but holy fuck, that's what happened. I did on accident, pretty much, when I was playing the SNES original, because I had no idea what the hell I was doing in any of these stories, really. So even with the Edo Japan, I just did that one, just running through, killing whoever.
You see, it's weird to say this, but you know, I like playing Pikmin and like optimizing my runs every time I like play Pikmin 1 or 2, or 3. This seems like something that if I really wanted to, I could just keep playing over and over, trying to keep getting like a better time. This seems like a very speedrun funny chapter to play through.
It is, and actually the fun thing is you do kind of get rewarded for doing it as optimal as possible, because then you can just start talking to the bartender and start skipping time ahead.
Yes, you're not stuck to the time limit. You can advance it.
And the more time you have left, the more you can talk to the bartender, and he has more than like one line of dialogue. He has a whole like story that he goes through, which does eventually repeat. But if you have enough time, you can listen to his whole story.
You get more narrative as a reward for playing well.
Yeah.
And perhaps if you want to mix things up, you could just get the necessary items and immediately skip ahead to the end and see if you can take them down with mooks. Maybe you can find a faster method. There's a lot of complexity in this one. That's why I do like it a lot. But how much do I like it? It's not an S.
It's certainly not an S, no. But I want to say it's an A.
You do?
I do want to say it's an A.
I'm doubting between an A or a B, because it is very light in the gameplay, but it doesn't have the monotony of both the previous story and the China section. Even though those are great, all of them are great. It is one of those things where it's like,
I don't know. I think just it all comes together like really well, and there's not really anything that I can say about it that's like negative. There's also a fair couple of secrets that you can find in there as well, like the whole like panties thing. Technically, it's a diary in the remake, but you know, can't have panties in your video games.
No, you can't.
Unless you're Mario RPG, I guess.
Yeah, you know what? I agree. Put it at A.
See, this you do. You convince friends to.
You know what it is? Okay, you know what put it over the line for me? The line. We will not say the line, but I remember the line again.
That is fair. That is fair. We're going back to the line again. That line. That's a great line.
Great line. A. Put it at A.
A line.
So the next one. This is the one that I think is one of the most memorable of them. Even though it's kind of light in the gameplay, because it is essentially just a series of bosses.
Yes. Essentially Mega Man.
It's essentially Mega Man. Bosses in non-linear order. Very stylized like Street Fighter. And they just have to copy the moves. I am curious though. It is the shortest out of any of them.
Absolutely.
It is incredibly short. It's also part of the demo, and even though it is Mega Man and you have a non-linear way of playing, you're kind of just gonna like always play the same, because you know, as soon as you take the one down, you go through them all. You can't really.
There's orders you can take, but most of it's not literally like Mega Man where you get one skill from a person that the next one is weak to. It's more like there's a skill type. There's like kicking, there's punching, there's like throwing skills, and that is specifically what they might be weak to. So there isn't really a set order like there is in Mega Man where like, oh, this one's easiest to take down without any special skills, and then you go in the specific order. There is one that people have made, but it's not nearly as set in stone as it is with the Mega Man games, usually.
Having said that, I do have to say, stylizing an RPG chapter like a fighting game is bizarre, and I can't believe that they pulled that off properly.
Yeah.
And I feel it also works because it is so short. I'm not gonna like go into that and dreading, oh, I'm gonna have to do all these bosses again. No, you're done in like half an hour. It's like it's a super bite-sized thing. Also part of the demo, along with I think China and Japan.
Yeah, it's those three are the demo chapters that you get.
And I think it really like showcases that using the proper moves is the bread and butter of the combat system in Live Alive.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna say story. I mean, story's kind of like whatever, just typical fighting game thing. I would say put it a B because it is kind of unique, and I think it just works well.
I was gonna say B as well. I don't know if we want to order these in B, from best to worst of B.
It would definitely.
Not that they're bad, because the word best to worst is just.
I put it above Prehistory.
I would. Yeah, I think I would do the same.
And would I put? I mean, I love the replayability, but I think the structure of China really like sours it because it is just.
It does sour it a fair amount.
It is the most grindy without having random battles and grinding. Because even though like the meat thing is like it's not really required, and here is like you have to fight your disciples a bunch and then have to fight. Yeah, this is probably the right order.
Prehistory isn't all too grindy either, because you can literally just do that one like which hay bale has more people in it like 6 times, and you have like enough items for the entire game.
Yeah.
For the entire chapter, not the entire game, obviously. I'd say the only thing I was thinking about maybe putting modern day up to like low A, but the only problem that I have with it that puts it back down to B is the fact that getting the skills can be kind of unpredictable at sometimes. Especially the Hawaii person gets. So some of the people get a bit weird with when they want to use certain moves.
The white person was weird, and they, you know what? They hit the running gag behind a very specific move. I can't forgive that. Everyone has to see that.
In fact, in the original version, the SNES version, getting the dad to throw a can at the funny the wrestler man is a 1 in 50 chance.
That's too low.
Yeah, in the remake, just 100%. It just happens either way.
That's great.
Fun fact though, this chapter was definitely the hardest for me on the Super Nintendo version.
I remember the live stream.
This was mostly because I didn't even know that you learned skills from enemies, so I just fought them, barely got any skills, didn't even know why I got some of them, and then I got to the final dude, and by God, that final guy can destroy you if you don't have anything. But then again, it's very short, so if you feel stuck, it's literally 20 minutes away of just restarting and getting back to that point again. It's super fun.
Then the next one, I know where I'm gonna put this immediately.
I think I know as well.
Say it. Where do you want to put it?
I want to put it at C.
I want to put it at C as well.
However, I will say that does not mean it's bad at all, because it's still really good, and the music, especially that little intro bit, which, granted, that's not in the SNES, but one of the elevations of the great things about the remake is one of that. That it's such a great addition. Just that little Power Rangers-esque song sung by the vocalist of the Dragon Ball intro. It's just great.
The whole thing is just pretty much an homage to Power Rangers, and it's fantastic.
It pretty much is, yeah.
And I do think that the environments are very nice. I like the idea of exploring a world map with different locations to visit. My problem is that not every location is pretty much important. You just have 3 places that you go to, which is the home, the doctor, and then the school or the facility. The other things you kind of just like happenstance visit once, and that's it. And this is the one chapter where I got really annoyed with getting stuck on random encounters that just wouldn't leave me alone and wouldn't go away. I was like, I have enough levels, I don't want to fight this, and I just had to. And even if you leave, just still there, so you can't even run really. And there's a lot of back and forth.
There is a lot of back and forth,
and the story is also just there's some good story beats, but it's also very silly. Supposedly, it's it's Power Rangers. I don't know what
it's supposed to be silly, so obviously it's going to follow that trend.
And
but
the turtle voice in Japanese especially is funny.
It's
great.
It's pretty great. But I will say, if we do decide to do the character tier list of playable characters, that turtle boy, straight to E, he sucks.
He sucks. He doesn't level.
He does not level.
I don't need to do a character. Don't need to do a character tier list, but I just know, he's horrible.
Yeah,
he's bad. Still very enjoyable, but definitely like the low point of the game for me.
Absolutely. I think the thing that kills it, especially for me, which granted, not an issue in the remake because it has a little mini map radar telling you where to go. Finding out where to go in the Super Nintendo version without a guide is very much a pain. Because none of the characters really tell you where to go or what you should do. Sometimes you talk to a character, they say some random thing for like 2 lines, and then in the remake, the little flag of where to go, it's just suddenly somewhere in like the warehouse all the way down in town. It's like, why would I go there now?
It's also weird that you get a bunch of really good items from just keep sitting on the toilet. That didn't really like... I kept doing it, but I felt like, why is this giving me items?
Those items, you're supposed to give those to the doctor because he synthesizes them into better items sometimes.
Sometimes. I did do that a bunch. I did get some cool stuff from it, but I was also like, is there an optimum solution to this? And I looked it up. No, not really.
No, because it's just random.
Yeah.
It's not random what he transforms it into, it's just random if he does it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Which does kind of make it a little bit annoying. But yeah, C is probably the... This is also probably the only one I'd even put in C.
This is the only one. Low point of the game, but I mean, it's like the low point of just a bunch of great things. Like, again, it's a great chapter. It's a fun chapter. It's just a low... It's like... I don't even know what to compare it to in like another like quality game. It's like, oh no, I have to play Mario Galaxy and then I have to do like a purple coin mission. Ooh, are you still having fun? Probably. At least. I don't know. There's some horrible purple coin, but you get the idea.
Yeah, I get the idea.
What is the next one?
The next one.
The distant
space.
future. Okay.
It's Alien.
This one is weird.
Because
it is mostly dialogue.
There is basically no combat.
There's
until you
one
go
boss
to the
at
end.
Yeah. One final boss at the end. It doesn't even really count that much, even though like I had kind of weird luck with him when you were there.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, there's no combat. It's just a story, and it's weird for that. But it is an interesting story, even if it's just ripping off 2001 and Alien. Like, I knew exactly where the story was going as when it started transpiring.
Yeah, I mean, at this point where we are with media, that kind of story is outplayed a lot already. Back then, you could probably get away with it without, like, with some people not really knowing where you're going with it, but it's definitely very heavily inspired by 2001 and Alien.
Mm-hmm. So, how do you feel about a chapter in a game where there's no combat, where essentially the focus, one of the two big focal points, where like there's the chapter, the story chapter telling, and then there's also the grid-based combat that Live Alive is known for, which I guess we really didn't talk about that much, but you move characters in the grid, kind of like a tactical game, but more than use different moves, and certain moves they're weak to and certain moves they're not. This chapter doesn't really have that. This has no battles. How do you feel about a RPG game that has like an RPG chapter that basically has no battles? It's weird to me.
I think at that point, when you have a chapter like this...
Also, I think it was this one instead of the present day one that was in the demo, actually.
That might be it. Yeah, you might be right. I'm not entirely certain about the demo since I didn't play the demo because I just already knew I was gonna get
I'll look
it
it up while you speak.
I think honestly, when you have a case like this where you have a chapter where there's basically no combat, you kind of have to just gauge and rank it based on what it does have. Where basically I'm saying you should kind of just gauge it on like how good was the story, how good were the character interactions, the character motivations and such. How good was the, because I mean it is there, the little bit of a horror aspect there as well. How good was all that handled? And then just kind of leave out the gameplay in terms of the combat at least, because sure there is that like mini game you can play if you really want to have some kind of combat in this chapter. There is a mini game you can play that has you play as a different character, but
I was right,
it's completely optional.
It was the distant future, not the present day. That was in the demo.
Fair enough. But yeah, that minigame is completely optional. You don't have to do it. It doesn't even really. I think it does give you. No, actually, I don't think it gives you anything. It just gives you bragging rights, I guess, if you do it. But it is there if you really want combat. But again, I don't think combat is really important in one like this because it's just not the focus point.
Do you think? No, I suppose that would like be very weird to say. My talking about it, it's like, do you think we could rate it higher because it was included in the demo that you can transfer the save from? So technically, even if it's not part of it, you could be like, oh, I mean, it's just a free narrative experience. Technically, it is.
Technically, it is. I don't think you can really rate the chapter itself on that though, because that's
fair.
That's a bit separate.
So like I'm thinking right now, like
I'm thinking as well. I think it's replaying it. I mean, there's no replay value.
There's none. It's just a story.
It's just a story. Technically, there's like a secret you can find with some extra dialogue. Maybe that can be replay value, but it's like it's not as short as the present day one. It's about an hour and a half or so story.
I would definitely put it behind China.
Behind China?
Behind China. It was a very good story, but as a one and done, I think, knowing what it's gonna turn into, I could still enjoy narrative beats, but it would also be like just a bunch of clicking and a bunch of cutscene things where like it's kind of just like a process to get to the other chapters and get to the end game again. So like just from the idea that the others have gameplay, I do have to say like, well, replay value is gonna suck. This is gonna be like the chapter where I'm like, oh man, I just want to get through it. There's a cutscene skip button, obviously, but then I would be skipping the chapter essentially because it is mostly cutscenes. My first experience though, the story is good. It is good. It is interesting. The thing that chases you is scary. That's a cool mechanic. Basically, was that in the original SNES game? Essentially, fucking kickstarted RPG Maker horror games.
Pretty much. That's pretty much how they work. It's just, it's done way better in the remake because, nowadays are able to. He's giant instead of just a fucking one tile sprite.
Yeah.
Another thing that works in the advantage of the remake is the fact that they can do the atmosphere and the sound effect and the music. It's great. Way better. It's so good.
It's great. You know what? I suppose I'm complaining about grind. China has grind. I know. See, now I'm thinking. I'm gonna put it in my mind. I'm gonna put it on B. Definitely. I know how you feel about that.
See, now that's a very interesting one because for me it's an S.
An S?
Yeah, I really like the characters and how they interact with each other and the whole story. But I really like the atmosphere that they gave to it. I love the little horror thing because while it doesn't appear that often, when it does, it's very tense because they have the whole like increasing volume in like sound when it gets closer to you. We're talking about a giant behemoth monster thing, by the way, which is roaming around the whole space station.
You see it in like the beginning, and you have to like assume immediately, oh well, that's gonna like
come
and get you. There's a reason for it. So,
I think my reasoning with it is just like, yeah, there is the problem with the fact that there's not really any replay value, but if you were to just look at the game as like you play it once, just as a game, because not every game has to like be replayed, if you ask me. You don't have to look at every game with as like a replayable experience. Some games or some experiences are just like you do it once, and then that's it.
That's fair, but it's nice when it does have it. And
it's nice when it does have it.
A great narrative to boot. I would still put it in B for myself.
That's fair. I think my biggest thing with it, why I wouldn't put it low, well, I guess middle, it's just the fact that, like, while it doesn't have combat or like very extensive gameplay, I feel like that was a good choice, because I think if they did put combat in there in some way or another, where you had to, like, you get hacked sometimes and you have to fight some virus or whatever, I think that would probably deter, like,
Watch Dogs.
yeah, something like that. I feel like that would probably make the chapter less fun to me. I think that made a good choice, and I think the chapter does better having no combat than it would if it did.
I would not put it on S, but
I mean, we can just put it on A, since that is
yes.
literally between our
Shall
two choices.
Put it,
I do want to say it should probably go below the cowboy one then.
Yes.
All right.
The last one, well, somewhat the one you unlock, which is more typical traditional fantasy. That one's fucking great.
Basically Dragon Quest.
But fucked.
It's like a really short Dragon Quest with a fucked up villain origin story, where I still struggle to even call him a villain, because he is completely valid in why he becomes a villain.
Yeah, it's great. It's also very interesting that playing it, I was like, oh, wow, what a big world, and then you realize it's really not, but it feels giant, the world.
Yeah. What helps,
also,
I think, is that the little piece of overworld that you do have between the castle town, the regular town, the mountain, and the
many shortcuts,
final cave.
So many
yeah, there are routes. So many shortcuts, little in between pathways. That makes it feel much bigger than it actually is. Also makes me lost a couple times, but that's besides the point.
It's also one of those things where, like, I think that every area is kind of cool to explore.
Mm-hmm.
There's also different ways that things can go, because a little bit of there's a mechanic with the treasures that if you pick them up now or if you pick them up later, you can get different things, and I think that has very cool interconnectivity with the chapter that comes after that.
Yes.
The other thing that I'm very interested in is that it kind of goes against your expectations, where at the start it's a very typical Dragon Quest story, but then it changes and it evolves, and you're like, oh, what's going on? Why is it not done yet? And then it continues, like, oh no, what's happening? And leaves you feeling like, oh my god, what? That's not how it was supposed to go. And then it gets to the finale. It's like, that's the perfect way to say that. And at the first, I was very curious, like, what would happen with this if you put this at, like, the beginning of the game, and you have to play this chapter first, and then you play through all the 7 individual chapters, and then you play the finale. And I realized, even though it would be cool that you can finally see what continues this, I think they were so smart to put this at the end, because they immediately subvert your expectations. It's like, it's typical traditional fantasy RPG, but at this point it's been like 15 hours or even more since you didn't even know that this was, like, in there, honestly, and now it's here, and it doesn't feel like stale or traditional, even though it is, because you have had 15 hours of, like, the most innovative type of game, that when it goes to normal, you're like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool, but then it isn't normal, and that's the cool thing. I honestly think Yeah, no, this one was like really good. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was so surprised. I did not realize where it was gonna go, and then it went there. I was damn. Now I need to know what happens next, and that's exactly what it sets up. This is part a subversion and part a setup for the next chapter, which is why it is the 8th one, and you can't access this until you've done all the other ones, and it works perfectly as a result.
I also think what works perfectly about putting this at the end is that in the previous 7 chapters, you've only been playing as heroes, as some of which, I mean, I don't know if you can really call the prehistory dude a hero, because I mean he is, but not
killed
like
an evil T-Rex.
That's true, but he's not a hero in like the.
I should probably put a spoiler disclaimer at like the start.
I mean, yeah, obviously, but I think what helps is that obviously you play 7 chapters where you just play as the hero. The 8th chapter starts as you playing as the hero, which really helps with the whole subversion of your expectations right at the end there.
Mm-hmm.
Because you just expected, oh, I'm playing as a hero, and then it just throws that whole thing upside down, and you have no idea where it's even going.
It's great. It's really like I wasn't expecting it, and this is exactly the type of game where you could get away with it. Because like how many games do you really play where like halfway through you're realizing, oh, you're playing as the hero? Like imagine playing Final Fantasy VI and like halfway you play as Kefka, and halfway through you realize, oh, I'm kind of fucked in the head.
Yeah.
And even though it's like more tragic here, it's still like, damn, that's wow. So I think
I remember when I played this back on the SNES one, that like ending bit really fucked me up, because I was not expecting any of that at all. So it really just fucked me up. Like, holy shit, that is horrible.
Yep. I think the one thing that makes me go, it's not the best yet, is one, even though I like the difference of it, I still random encounters. I'm not, I'm just not.
That's fair.
Super big on that. And the other thing was, it is, even though there's like a different things you can do, it is still a tiny bit linear. Having said that, definitely S for me.
Absolutely.
But I would put it behind Japan.
I guess that's where we differ then. I would probably put it above.
Having said that, the next thing we're gonna agree on, because
okay, without talking about anything about it yet,
it's number 1.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. I'm glad we both agreed. And
that's why
we don't even have to talk about like before we put it there. We're putting it there.
Yeah, it's great.
It's the best one.
It's the best one. It's a culmination of everything that the game has done.
Has an insane amount of extra content for you to explore.
That's the other thing. Like, even though I didn't do all of it, because like I skipped a bunch of it, I realized it was there, and I was like, wow, there is so much stuff for me to do. I could like lengthen. Because I stopped playing, I finished the game after 22 hours, and I realized I could have easily put in another 10 if I wanted to. And that's another great thing about this game.
I took about 30 hours. I took about 30 hours because I did everything in that chapter. That final chapter, when I told you while I was there, yeah, that final chapter is the second half of the game. That was not really a joke, because if you do everything, that is the second half of the game.
And I didn't do the what was it, the villain route. I hear that one's cool too, and that's included in that. So you get a bunch of choice, super replayable, bunch of ways to play through it.
Do you want me to talk about the villain route?
Yes, you can, because even if I'm gonna play it, I don't really care about knowing it.
So the villain route, it basically picks up exactly where this chapter ends.
Yes.
With him standing in the room with like the statues.
Yes.
You basically get to pick whatever statue first. It doesn't really matter what order you do it in, but you basically get to play them all, and you get to fight as that villain and beat the hero. because you're a person controlling them and not a dumbass AI that keeps not using the best move.
Yes.
Because again, you once you play as that villain and you keep using the best move over and over again, you can kind of see it in the Wild West one, where if you even get hit by the best move once, you're gone.
Oh, the Gatling gun.
Yeah, the Gatling gun. Yeah. So just imagine doing that, but like every turn.
That's
it's messed up, but it's so
a power
fun.
fantasy.
It's genuinely a power fantasy. It's really great. And then by the end, obviously, you beat them all, and you get the evil villain life. It's a very cheesy kind of like villain wins ending. But it's just a really fun power fantasy.
But it's one you earned yourself, because you leveled up the character in the previous chapter, and now you decide, I want to be evil, and if you're stronger than everyone, well, you're gonna obviously curb stomp them.
Yeah, you basically decide, you know what, he had a good point. He's right. He got fucked over. Let me play as him and give him something good. The other fun thing, though, is in that villain route, you can technically take a third route. Because if you let a boss, it doesn't really matter which one, but if you let a boss take too much damage, you get a third option in your combat menu, which is titled Armageddon.
Okay.
It's very aptly titled, because you basically turn that boss into a fucking gigantic nuke and you blow up the planet.
Oh, that's...
It's basically him going, you know what, I can't win normally, I don't care. Nobody wins, and he just blows up the world. And you see like a nuke exploding in every single chapter endpoint.
That's a Lavos Chrono Trigger ending.
Yeah, pretty much.
Jesus. Heavy. But yeah, no, like all the side game, I like the fact that there is so much post-game stuff to do, different challenges. It's all optional, obviously. If you could just go straight to the end, and it wouldn't really change the ending. It just requires your skill.
Which is what I did in the Super Nintendo version. I was stuck at the final boss for 2 hours.
I did not have a lot of difficulty with the final boss, but there is a boss rush at the end. Normally I'd complain about that, but usually you're supposed to like be over leveled, so it doesn't really matter. And the only difficulty I had was like finding the Wild West boss again, because I was by my lonesome this time. Still very manageable.
Except when you're me on the SNES version, where all your character levels are shit, and having to fight the T-Rex with only Pogo, whoa, that sucks. It is horrible.
Here's the thing, I didn't level him. I was able to stun lock him with like the jump attack. I didn't have the jump attack. Oh, yeah.
I did zero fighting in the prehistory chapter when I played on the Super Nintendo. I was like level 5 maybe when I got to the T-Rex.
Yeah, no, I was like level 9 at least.
Yeah.
But there was like the jump attack that like moves him back. So like I jump attack, move him back. And he's out of range. He moves forward again. Jump attack, move him back. He moves back in. Jump attack. It just keeps going. And I was like, oh man, I found a cheese. That's awesome.
The design of the final boss, by the way, was really like not the final thing, but like the one before that with like the separate parts.
Oh,
I really like the design of that. It's like a really weird, fucked up looking thing.
Precursor to Madarame.
Pretty much. Pogdarame, the best boss from Persona 5. It's not.
That's the best one.
Sure, it's the best one.
No, it's not.
Okay, we said spoilers earlier, but specifically spoilers for the remake now, because this was not in the original. Once you beat the final boss, there was a little extra thing added to the remake where you fight basically like the essence of hate that took over Orsted.
Yes.
That's not in the original at all, but it's
I knew that.
It is an excellent addition to the remake. It's like not often where they add something to a remake where you can say, yeah, this elevated the game like by a lot, because just the fact that you have all these characters. And obviously, during the final chapter, you still can only control 4 characters most of the time.
But now they're all in the field.
But now they're all in that battle, just getting in and just fighting at the same time, rather than the other thing that RPGs tend to do, where it's like, oh, you have to split them up into teams and you fight them in specific teams if maybe one team dies. No, this like, whatever limitation the battle system had, they just removed that limitation.
You have 7 party members.
It's so cool.
It is really cool. I liked it a lot, and even though it was kind of that thing where like you could realize, even though this was added, they didn't really want to mess with the challenge level because he wasn't nearly as difficult as the previous.
No, it was more of it. It was really more of like a cutscene fight, but it was a cool cutscene fight.
It's a cool cutscene, super cool.
It's really cool.
It's like the thing where you finish is like, oh hell yeah, I beat the game. Yes, look at this.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that easily the best thing. Yeah, no, I think that this is pretty much how I feel about it. I may differ about like the distant future a bit, but other than that, this is pretty much how I feel. And the distant future wouldn't really change. It would be like maybe behind like the present day, so it's like barely a difference.
Yeah.
No, this is pretty much the variety of like how it goes for me with Live Alive, the difference in tiers. And if the only takeaway I can say is that play this game.
Please
because
do.
I feel that after it came out, it lost a little bit of steam since then because Square releases a lot. This was fantastic. This is probably one of the best games that came out in 2022. This just makes me want to play more creative things. Wants me to experience more, experimental things. This makes me think. This makes me appreciate gaming as a whole. Play Live Alive. That is the only message I want to tell you. It's good.
Yeah, I think, pretty much the same. I guess my only thing that I would add to that is considering they're fairly similar in structure, kind of, or at least in terms of what it was inspired by. If you have any interest in Octopath Traveler, play that before this, because otherwise you're kind of getting spoiled by this one. And because Octopath, while it does the whole chapter thing,
it's long.
It's longer, way longer, and it's not nearly as like connected or anything like this is. It's still interesting. I do like it a lot.
This game is a little over 20 hours, and Octopath is like 80.
Yeah, it's very different.
Octopath has very good stories and depth of gameplay, but the stories don't really connect to each other.
They don't.
And here at the end, it does. Yeah. Play Live Alive, everyone.